What is up, everybody? This is Alex from IGTV, and today I'm talking about the Apple TV show Widow's Bay, a show that kind of snuck up on me and to me is probably the best thing Apple TV has released as far as my tastes are concerned. Not that they release bad stuff, they actually, as far as streaming services go, have a quality bar that seems to be way above its competitors. But as someone who loves horror and loves comedy, this is a tone I've been searching for, I've been hunting for, and what it delivers here is funny, scary, intriguing, beautifully made. If any of that sounds alluring, check it out. Because in this video I'm going to go through episode by episode, refresh my memory, talk about it a little bit, give each episode a rating. So if you're still not sold, what I'm getting at with the tone of this show and why it's so unique is that sure, we've had plenty of horror shows on its own, we've had plenty of comedy shows on their own, but very rarely are they layered on top of each other in a way that doesn't undo or kneecap the other half of the tone that it's going for. If you're looking for comparison points, it's kind of difficult to pin it down exactly as part of what I like about it so much, but think of it as kind of a whirlpool mishmash of a little bit of Hot Fuzz with its kind of small town energy, with its escalating horror concepts in the background, a sprinkling of something like Barry with its deadpan, dry humor that can also get serious on a dime. I haven't seen it, but I've seen some comparisons to Twin Peaks. I'm pretty sure it's a bit more of a serious tone, and that's a real blind spot for me. I really need to fill in. I own the first season anyway. I really need to get around to that. I'm sure I'll love it. And with the horror concepts, this kind of underlying Stephen King kind of feeling, but all mixed together in an unpredictable, clever, and satisfying way. So this is your last warning. I really would recommend just going in blind, checking it out, seeing how you feel about it. All right, let's do this. So this spoke to me very early on. This is the first episode, welcome to Widow's Bay. I like to joke that I'm a triple islander because the only places I've ever lived are 3 different islands. That being New Zealand, Jersey Island, and of course England. So having my childhood on a tiny, like 12-mile long island meant that this was speaking my language, the small town energy, these weird characters who are all a little bit too familiar with each other. These places that are surrounded by the ocean definitely have a certain vibe, and this show captures that perfectly. That hooked me in right away. And now I feel bad for talking smack about Matthew Rhys's voice in Invincible as Dinosaurus, because I'd never seen him before. I'd heard he was awesome in The Americans. And now I'm fully sold on this dude. He's a Welshman. Shout out to Wales. I absolutely love Wales. I was surprised to learn that after a fact with his American accent being so spot on. He does a lot of subtle face acting that communicates the emotion of the character extremely well. He has great range, goes through a lot and changes a lot as a character. An incredible protagonist. And even in saying that, I don't even think it's my favorite character in here. The episode lengths vary from about half an hour to 40-45 minutes sometimes. It is one of the pluses of the streaming world is that you can kind of be flexible. So a lot of the first episode is setting up the general vibe of the town, the kind of awkward, dry comedy to it, the strange characters, the superstitions. The atmosphere is really fun and charming, the blocking's really good, the lighting, all the technical stuff is entertaining. We've got a tight script, prime delivery of the script. It's just top tier stuff. I like the way it trickles out the supernatural, folky, Wicker Man, Midsummer kind of horror stuff in the background, giving it time to breathe and taking a while to show its teeth. There's also a fairly small group of main characters, so it doesn't get lost in its scope or scale, feels very focused and like it's taking you somewhere with intent. Like going back to the poster quickly, these 6 characters, especially these top 4, are definitely the standout characters to me and all feel really fleshed out. These 2 are kind of more for the comedy side. They're memorable and funny. Stephen Root plays Wick, who fits into the archetype of the kind of superstitious fisherman who's framed as someone who's a little bit kooky, but as time goes on is proven to be more right than it seems. Really fun character. I'm pretty sure he's up for an Emmy for this. This show's like got a bunch of Emmy nominations. Hopefully it wins as many as it deserves. Really like this cop character and what they do with him. He kind of felt like plucked out of a Resident Evil game for me, where he's this fairly normal dude who reacts to the absurd situations in the most relatable and audience-standing kind of way. The main character, Tom, has a son that we're introduced to called Evan, who winds up having a pretty important role in the plot as it unfolds, and the general plotting is quite excellent. It does a good job of having 2 or 3 major plot points on the go and wrapping one up right as another one is getting deep into the interesting part. There's never really a dull moment in the 10-episode span of the show. Kate O'Flynn as the Patricia character is probably my standout performance and overall character of the show. When she's first introduced, I was a bit worried that she'd be like a two-dimensional kind of joke character that just exists to kind of be awkward and weird, but she kind of winds up being the goat of the whole thing. Like, going back to the poster again, it's a really nice way of doing an entourage of characters where they will have their place in the story, they will have their comedy niches with what they bring. Just really thoughtful and well put together. In the hospital, we get our first supernatural kind of moment, revealing to us that there is something funky going on. And the whole framing, the very kind of Jaws-like element of the mayor of the town not wanting to believe, in this case not a giant shark, but the idea that there's a curse or something supernatural going on for the case of his career/tourism, with his arc covering multiple different points of him coming to terms with the situation, his relationship with the island, with his son. It's a done-to-death thing to say, but the island really does feel like a character, and winds up being a really nice visual metaphor for the kind of limbo or an accentuation of the isolation that the main character is kind of trapped in. To the point where I was kind of like, is this like hell or something? Are they like trapped in hell? Are we going like Lost kind of directions with this? I like how the isolation side of it kind of ties into the tragedy and reveals in relation to the main character. So solid first episode, lays down the fundamentals. I'd probably give that like an 8 or so. I think I've started going through this a little bit quicker because I am not planning on being here all day for this, but this is episode 2, Lodging. This is where the horror kind of ramped up for me and was like, it's rare for me to watch something horror related and actually get the burst of adrenaline. Obsession did that for me recently, and that is the kind of emotional experience I'm looking to get from horror. Like, the best stuff is able to do that. There's this ongoing gag with the fucked up hotel that's really run down and kind of scary, and Wick is like trying to board it up because he knows something is going on and there's a curse, with the structure of this episode kind of being a test on the mayor to be like, okay, if it's okay, you stay in the hotel for one night and see if everything's a-okay, which he winds up doing to try and prove a point. He winds up having a pretty creepy experience. A lot of really good set design, lighting, as you can see, like just mise-en-scene type stuff, and like the design of all the paintings, which wind up being integrated into the story, and these weird, just off-kilter, like horror artifacts, like him going through all the old games and books to kill some time, and they're all just odd and creepy. Yeah, the cards. Really nice tension building and horror payoffs. He starts hearing things and sees that there's someone else staying in the room next door. Oh yeah, the creepy tape. There's a few instances of these old creepy found footagey sort of elements integrated into there. Just gives you a little bit of everything. With the kind of payoff of this episode being that this guy wasn't even real this entire time. And the part that really got me was this moment. Going to explore in the basement. And it's just really good at delivering information in a satisfying, creepy way to like maximize impact. And I won't show it because some people just like fucking lose it when they see clowns, but what happens shortly after this did give me a little burst of adrenaline. I'm not even that scared of clowns normally. So I was kind of really hooked after this episode. It's so intriguing. It's like, where is this going? What are we doing here? This is so interesting and weird. And the whole angle of like, are they going to try and rationalize this? Are they going to try and explain this? Is this like a misdirect? Are they going to lean into the supernatural side of it? You don't know for sure yet. I really like that episode. I'd probably give that a 9. Episode 3, the Inaugural Swim, is another awesome episode, building up the horror some more, getting some character stuff in there. It's also very good at building up these conflicts with various characters that make sense from both sides' perspective. Like, Tom is single. We don't know what happened to his wife yet, but one of the through lines of this episode is that there's this woman that's genuinely interested in him. Because of the supernatural stuff that's going on, he doesn't really trust her, even though he could have from the audience's perspective. Because as we find out, this is the Hitchhiker episode, there's this hag myth on the island that has this curse associated with her. Creepy. Where if she gets to you and scratches you, then she always knows where you are. So it's almost like an It Follows kind of situation. Creepy shit. So cool. And obviously that ongoing tension of him not wanting to believe it, wanting to just be a good mayor and do the best for the island. But obviously the scratch complicates things, and the hag. Lots of funny side characters whenever they go to the lighthouse with this bumbling dude. They have some funny dry gags with that. Lots of nice on-location shooting. Makes the environment feel real and lived in. And like it has history, it needs to feel that way for the atmosphere to sink in and work. As you can imagine, the swim doesn't quite go to plan, with the hag showing up in a creepy shot. There's a nice building tension with Tom and Wick, where he has to keep coming to Wick more and more to indulge in these urban legends and sailor stories to kind of learn the rules of how these supernatural forces work, and you find out that the hag does have some rules to it, so he at least has a chance. In this case, his advice is to lock himself in a chest so she can't get to him and wait for the wound to heal, because then she won't be able to track him anymore. There's this creepy B-plot with the Reverend, who starts hearing church bells, even though the bell has been decommissioned, where this whole hallucinogenic mushroom plot is set up and is explored a little bit more later. Goddamn, just going back through this is kind of making me realize just how fucking good this is. It's kind of making me just want to rewatch it. The whole latter part of the episode is the interaction with the hag. Really well shot, with the dark comedy aspect layered, with the way she dispatches people, with Wick ultimately saving him. Great episode, I'd give that a 9 as well, I think. Episode 4, Beach Reads, is probably the first 10 out of 10 episode for me, establishing some more mythology to the island and the horror, but also massively fleshing out Patricia, making her so sympathetic. This episode, like, triggered me, man. I felt so sorry for her. With the horror element of this episode being based around this haunted self-help book, which is a nice commentary on how full of platitudes or insane ideas some of these can be, but also has an amazing payoff towards the end. And the show has a nice non-linear structure. It will jump around in time at points to maximize impact and tie all these different characters together. She's invited to this party and is supremely neurodivergent coded, where how everyone's just like a dick to her for no reason, and she's trying her best but just isn't really picking up on social cues or doesn't know how to navigate them, and is ostracized for being a little bit kooky or odd. And you find out that they all think that she's a liar attention seeker, because she claims that when she was younger, this masked serial killer who had run rampant on the island tried to get her at one point, but she hid under her bed and wasn't found, and none of them believe her. So in her mission to be seen, after her horrible party experience, she goes back to the book, which gives her a guide on how to throw a party, try and make some friends, and starts throwing together a party. She gets quite obsessive and is putting everything into it, and putting arguably too much into it, putting too much of a stake on it. You can see why she's doing it. She's lonely. She wants some connection with somebody. There are loads of really sad scenes of her going through invites and no one replying, with this growing tension of her getting kind of more and more unhinged as the episode goes on. It ramps up nicely. And the Dale Dickey Rosemary character comes into her own. She has some of the best comedic moments in the show. A fun character archetype. The kind of grumpy old lady with the raspy smoker voice. When the party kicks off, it's kind of a disaster. She angrily calls Tom, who is at this moment in time paranoid about the hag killing him when he promised that he would be there. More and more people start showing up. This seems to actually start working. She has some good interactions with people, as well as some bad ones. And then we finally get to the serving the punch moment. Everyone's cheery and happy and having a good time on its face. She has a toast, and there's a really cool shot here where from her perspective, they're all cheery and happy. But it pans over to the mirror, and something fucked up is going on. And it kind of goes by so quick, you don't really get a chance to absorb it. There's a musical cue. It's quite brilliant. Rosemary keeps criticizing her plans. You're kind of just like, why is she being such an asshole about this? Until the Bashir character shows up and is like, what the fuck are you doing? And we get our reveal of what actually has been going on, which turns out to be this fucked up culty ritual that she's unintentionally been enacting through this cursed book, and through the punch bowl that she made has kind of hypnotized the entire town to go down to the ocean in a Wicker Man-esque creepy ritual. It's such a good payoff. This is prime. This is an incredible episode of television, and just storytelling and filmmaking, seeing the true nature of the book. And even though she solves it and gets rid of the book with the fire, when it loosens the grip on all of the townsfolk, they all just blame her and think she's weird and drugged everyone. Just a supremely sympathetic character all around. But the episode keeps going and has one more major reveal when it ties the timelines together, with them finding the Reverend having taken his own life in a crazy bookend. I think that's a 10 out of 10 episode. I think there are 2 10 out of 10 episodes in this season anyway. Very clever, great writing. Over the course of the show, there are a bunch of flashback scenes to different parts of history of the island. They indicate this through an aspect ratio change. And this, as I mentioned, is about this mushroom, which, as they describe, opens your inner eye, with the 3 main characters going to this shaman dude, who through one way or another winds up with Tom accidentally ingesting the mushrooms when it was supposed to be Wick, with the rest of the episode being this really discombobulating timeline of Tom coming in and out of scenes and jumping around all over the place and communicating this trip he's having. You're locked to his perspective, and They really make you feel it with the sound design, all these awkward, uncomfortable close-ups. His performance, a very cool episode. The B-plot is his son, Evan, hanging out with friends, smoking, and daring each other to go into the creepy house of the previously mentioned serial killer. There it is, that comes back later. The tripping framing is really nice as an excuse to kind of skip past a bunch of exposition, because while he's going through this kind of terrifying experience, everyone around him is kind of solving problems and trying to figure out like what the fuck is going on, and as a good narrative reason to show some flashbacks to his wife, who winds up becoming more important later. Another Prime episode, I'd probably give that a 9 as well. Next up is the episode Our History, which is entirely in the different aspect ratio and is a period piece special to set up some of the mythology of the island. I didn't think this was the strongest episode, but now that I've finished the show, I would probably get more out of this on a rewatch, knowing like where it goes and how certain characters are used after the fact. There's nothing too scary or standout about it that's jumping into my head, but I really like how it shows off locations we know but with a completely different historical framing. I dig it even if the payoffs linked to it aren't evident right away, with it ending with some good old-fashioned grave robbing, or I guess corpse stealing. Our History, I think I'd give a 7. I'd have to rewatch it to really hammer down how I feel about it now that I know what happens. It's a bit more of a setup episode, because when we return to the characters we know and that have been fleshed out, the trip has ended and the main goal of this episode is to go out to sea. So this zombie guy is Richard Warren, the founder of the island. They were looking for a pendant that he was buried with that supposedly contained the details of the curse, with them being surprised that he's actually not been dead and he has been buried alive for hundreds of years with a curse of his own. He explains that it needs to be taken past the dead zone in order to break the curse over him. This is when the hereditary aspect comes in with the details of the pendant once Warren opens it, revealing that every descendant of Warren needs to be eliminated for the curse to be broken. So while Wick and Tom are out at sea dealing with the zombie guy, the B-plot with Evan builds in the background with him rummaging through a bunch of his dad's stuff and stumbling across some disturbing information about his mother, who he was told was dead because she died in childbirth, but he finds pictures of her and him as a little baby, so something's not adding up. Lots of funny humor and delivering of information on this boat sequence. And Warren has a really good voice effect added over him, and even though he said he wanted to die because he's been alive for so many years buried underground, when it comes down to it, he actually wants to stay alive. And there's a fight scene in the boat. Really like the way they lit and constructed this sequence on the ocean, with the like black sea only lit by the light of the boat and these buoys. Another really solid episode. Just builds on itself super nicely. It's really consistent. I think I'd give that one a 9 as well. Right, episode 8, Your Baggage. Tom finally feels free and relieved that the curse is broken now that Warren is dealt with and turned into a skeleton. Things obviously aren't that simple, with him being confronted by his son over the pictures that he found, which results in a very well executed dramatic scene between them, an emotional scene, where he has to explain to his son that while she didn't die in childbirth, she had some kind of stroke and it affected her mental health and she had to be hospitalized and just wasn't the same person from that point, and didn't tell him to protect him. A nice organic conflict between them where you can see both sides. There's not really a villain in the situation here. Just good writing, good drama. Top tier stuff. Wick finds out that the murderer's mask has been stolen from the museum, which starts tying us back to the scary house from earlier that the kids were daring each other to go in, which then gives Patricia another chance to shine. Kind of brings back around the whole element of her story about her childhood experience with the serial killer, with this episode acting as this ode or love letter to Halloween, with Patricia kind of filling that final surviving woman trope with way more sprinklings of comedy in there, with her grabbing this taser, it being out of charge, and her running around with the charge cables, with these really nice long blocked out shots that let it breathe, really nice timing to the editing, creepy supernatural element. It's got it all, with it nicely tying back round to the women that bullied her in the earlier episodes and them not listening to her again. They have a bit of a row because they think she's just being a weird freak, and she admits that she lied about receiving phone calls from the killer, but that she did in fact experience him trying to get her, and that part wasn't a lie, but obviously they don't believe her. And the ongoing gag of just everyone being unhelpful and not believing her is really funny and frustrating frustrating in a good way. Really escalates towards the end with an amount of violence I can't really show on YouTube, and the structure of it cutting from the kind of humorous Halloween chase stuff being played completely straight up against this really emotional exchange with Tom and his son gives the episode a nice emotional range. Another good gag here where she manages to escape to the gas station, has a plan with the gas, and even though she manages to set the monster man on fire, the gas station worker puts him out and winds up getting got himself. This is where the character work was really coming to a head for me, where I was scared for Bashir and really didn't want him to be taken out here, which is a sign of good character writing, good performance, and luckily this isn't the end of him, even though it does come close, with Patricia saving him and winding up being kind of a badass. And the gag of her, I love that they do this. Even though she's dealt with it, she's just got that shotgun locked onto him from the moment she takes him down for the entire ambulance journey all the way to the crematorium. It's like, yeah, you would do that. If I was her, I would do that. It's so nice to see a character do that in a horror supernatural framing where it's like, why even take the risk? I thought that was awesome. With her finally being free of this monster that has been plaguing her for so long. But they're not out of it yet. The thunderstorm is set up. And also, we find out that Bashir's wife is pregnant, which of course is a bad thing on this island. People shouldn't be having kids here because of the curse, putting him in a bit of a conundrum because he obviously can't take his wife off the island if there's a significant storm brewing. And right after Tom had this emotional therapeutic exchange with his son and had all these plans to go and look at universities in Boston and finally feel like he's coming out of his shell and escaping his trauma a little bit, Wick shows up and is like, it's not over. And you can just see from the look on his face here, the expression. I think that's probably the other 10 out of 10 episode. Right, winding down here as we get to the 9th episode, Emergency Shelter, with the scale growing and this storm being this prison-like excuse to get everyone down into this bunker, with Tom desperate not to sound the alarm and put any tourist in a bad situation that will spread the word to never visit there. But people have been dying, he doesn't really have a choice. He's crestfallen. He flips out and starts breaking stuff around his office, including this painting, which concludes with him finding out that Warren was in fact not the last surviving member of the bloodline, and they've got to do some more investigating to figure out who is left. The storm gets worse and worse. Bashir gets more and more stressed because he doesn't want his wife to give birth and have a cursed baby or whatever's going to happen. Everyone starts funneling down into a shelter which has a bit of a reputation. We don't know why yet. With the standout scene of this episode being Rosemary, who had been tasked with doing the research on the Warren family tree to try and figure out who is still alive, with her comedically going one by one, crossing out who died. It's a really funny gag about lesbians. It's like laugh out loud funny. It's consistently laugh out loud funny, the show, but not in a way that destroys the horror tone or the intrigue. It's quite a long scene that's weirdly reminiscent of in Blade Runner when Harrison Ford is like investigating that image for ages, with the ultimate reveal being that this recurring background character, Ruth Livingston, who has had a few appearances up until this point, turns out to be the last living survivor, so she kind of has to die to save everybody, which puts them all in a really awkward situation where they have to decide between murdering an innocent, lovely old lady or stopping the misery and curse of the town. Another really solid episode, mostly set up for the next one, so I'd give that an 8. And finally, the capper for the season, with some of the best comedy in the whole show in this. With this, they make a gag about the trolley problem conundrum that he's in, but he takes it upon himself to go to this old lady's house. And of course, she's like the nicest person. She's thoughtful. She's got a really full calendar of stuff that she does every day and people that rely on her. She's always been like really good to his son. So a lot of really fun dynamics at play here, with his plan being to combine some medication that she shouldn't combine in order to try and take her out and stop the curse. Meanwhile, everyone's freaking out in the emergency shelter. Things just getting worse and worse. The supplies being all moldy and old. People freaking out. And the Dale character finding all these creepy old culty tapes that imply that this bunker had something else going on. All the exchanges with Tom and the old lady are hilarious and thoughtful and well written. Bashir is freaking out more and more that his wife is going to give birth here and now. And one by one, all these various plot points start coalescing and paying each other off, as well as new mysteries and mythologies opening up and leaving question marks to explore later. I was a little bit concerned that it wasn't going to feel satisfying because there was so much left to answer, but I feel like it ends at a good place and leaves you wanting more. Evan and his friends find a secret ladder and creepy tunnel and find this weird torture room, and after Dale is finished watching all of these creepy instructional videos, there's an amazing comedic beat, not only with this face that he's pulling, which was like exactly what I was doing after what was explained in that video. But while they're trying to keep everybody calm, he comes out and is like, this is, everybody's in danger, run! So everyone flips out. And then we get the major twist of the season that the old lady winds up being the mother of Tom's wife. I had a sneaking suspicion that it would tie back into Tom somehow, the curse I mean, to make it more morally complicated. Not that this situation isn't already, meaning that his son is actually the youngest remaining living Warren descendant. So even if he did murder this old lady, his own son would have to die in order to break it, which breaks his heart and says to him that he's never going to be able to leave the island. This overlaps with Bashir shooting the old lady out of wanting to save his pregnant wife and baby, with him finding out the truth a bit too late. With the storm element of the curse capping off with this underground tunnel exchange with this dude who winds up getting trapped in this room and fed to some kind of creature or entity, or we don't know yet, that appears to calm the storm as some kind of cultish ritual that was alluded to in those instructional creepy videos, leaving elements of the mythology to explore, leaving something open. So while the storm has passed, there's still a lot more to explore, and it feels like the characters have changed a lot, that a lot has happened, and it's just a satisfying place to end a first season. How's he going to tell his son? What are they going to do? What is there still left to find out? That's the beauty of long-form storytelling, and I can't wait to see what comes next. I thought that was also a really solid episode. I'd give that a 9. So looking all round, very consistent season of television. I really, really enjoyed this. I would recommend it super heavily. Hopefully you haven't had the whole thing spoiled and you're watching this as someone who's already seen it, but there was very little I disliked about this. In fact, I can't really think of any major critiques as I've been recapping and going through. Nothing has really jumped out or stood out to me. Kind of makes me want to revisit this sooner rather than later. Hopefully this doesn't take years and years and years and years like Severance to have other seasons. I also hope they have some kind of shape to it. Even like a 2-season show that just ends would be ideal. Keep it focused and hopefully it has a vision. And yeah, I just thought this was excellent. Really spoke to me. So let me know your thoughts on the show. Did you like it as much as me? Did you have any issues that I didn't really highlight? Let me know. And I'll see you on the next vid. Bye!